He makes you shake your head. He makes you scratch your head. He almost always makes you chuckle. And in the end, he's underrated for this. He makes you think. Mark Rogers TV just a few minutes after checking out South Carolina head coach Steve Spurrier at SEC Football Media Days, an event I covered firsthand in covering 3 SEC schools in particular from 1994 to 2000. It was a lot of fun, and it was a whole lot of fun talking to Steve Spurrier back in the 90s, then at Florida. And not a whole lot has changed. He seems to be completely shooting from the hip. He speaks with candor, apparently. We can't get inside of his head, but he certainly appears to be speaking from the heart. Even when he's not speaking from the head and giving a lot of thought to what he has to say, he speaks from the heart, and you got to love that. He started off today's time at the podium by citing a few things that the SEC football and basketball coaches talked about in Destin, Florida when they got together in late May. He said, we usually don't release this to the media, but at the same time, this year, hey, I'm going to let it out and let you know what we talked about. First thing is, we understand that most of these football and basketball players, particularly in this conference, but all across the country, are underprivileged. And yes, receiving a college degree is a great thing, a very valued thing, but they can't do anything outside of that. Their loved ones, their family, their guardians in many instances should be able to be able to see them play college football or college basketball. So, by a vote of 14-0 by the football coaches and 14-0 by the basketball coaches, so 28-0, they decided unanimously that money should be provided. They estimate between $3,500 and about $3,900 per player per team to be able to get their family to see them to play each game. Steve Spurrier even went into his own pocket to say, hey, if we need to make this happen ourselves, meaning the coaching fraternity in the SEC, we will make it happen. We'll see if it does happen. Unfortunately, I think that the NCAA will think of some way that this can't happen, even if the coaches pay for it. But good idea by Spurrier there. The next one was funny because he said, we all agree that Notre Dame needs to be in a conference. Okay, when we're talking about this 4-team playoff, the committee's gotten together, the selection committee that will be in charge of selecting the selection committee, and it involves all the BCS conference commissioners and the athletic director at Notre Dame. Now, why does he carry as much power as 12 or 14 institutions? He shouldn't. Totally agree with Steve Spurrier here. The time has come for Notre Dame to join a conference. The rest of their sports were good enough to join the ACC, or the ACC was good enough to let in Notre Dame to play all the other sports, but not football. Now, I understand Notre Dame does not have to. They generate enough interest, enough eyeballs, enough money to stay independent. They have proven that, and they made a BCS national championship game last year. So even the formula works through the BCS era. We'll see if it works as well for Notre Dame going into a 4-team selection committee-derived playoff system. We shall see. But Coach Spurrier, you got to hand it to him, just lays it out on the line and says, Notre Dame needs to join a conference. Can somebody explain to me why they're not in a conference? Now, check out our video post from years gone by, and we certainly make the case why Notre Dame in football is a perfect fit for the Big Ten, not the ACC, but the Big Ten for many, many reasons. In talking about his own football team, he was very honest there. We're a really good football team. We've got good football players. We think we can win the SEC. Some breaks are going to have to fall our way, but we've got a good football team. We recruit good football players. He even stated about himself, hey, I don't take the kind of pressure and heat as other coaches do in the SEC. Number one, because I've got a coaching staff that allows me to take some time off in the summer, get away from it, get refreshed, come back to it. Not everybody can do that in the SEC because of all the pressure. And he also stated flat out, hey, at South Carolina, the expectations are what the expectations are. Now we're shooting for an SEC championship, but hey, our fans are just happy to beat Clemson. They're the most important game on the schedule to our folks in South Carolina. So they're just happy to beat Clemson and have a winning season. But he wants to win an SEC championship and do that for the first time at South Carolina. It's hard to believe that he's been at South Carolina longer than he was at Florida, when he certainly took that program to another level. Interesting tidbits from Steve Spurrier. He talked about the schedule in the SEC as well, which of course needs to be fixed, because when you expand to 14 teams, as the SEC has, and stay with an 8-game schedule, there are going to be strength differences, discrepancies in the schedule that you can't avoid, you can't predict, you can't project, because the teams get better and they get worse, and there's no way in protecting division alignment and in protecting those rivalries that have been established, cross-divisional rivalries such as Alabama and Tennessee, and Auburn, Georgia, and Florida, and LSU. You can't have a balanced schedule that's fair for everyone. It's obvious when you check out the schedules. Georgia in particular has benefited from having an easier schedule, not taking on Alabama and LSU the past few years out of the Western Division. And of course, Steve Spurrier took some heat last year in pointing that out, that he'd rather play Ole Miss than play LSU. And they had to play LSU. Georgia played Ole Miss. And that was brought up this year. And of course, he had fun with it. He didn't take offense to it, didn't try to be politically correct. He said, Ole Miss was 2-10 the year before. Of course, I'd rather play them. But now they're a pretty good football team. So things have changed. And I like Hugh Freeze. How can you not like Hugh Freeze? He plays golf and he wears a visor just like me. So Steve Spurrier on the podium at the SEC. It was fun to watch. Your comments now on the SEC, as the season is just about 6 weeks away, right here on Mark Rogers TV.